talk shows, find your own voice, lead from within. So with me today, I'm with Carol Ann Cooper and Shireen Love Group. And guys, please over to you. How are you?
We're great, thanks. And
Mm,
you?
very well, thank you.
Yeah, good,
And we can
good.
just tell the audience, at least now we can hear you. So we're all having a little joke about this, about something that was an earpiece that was standing up rather than down, and none of us saw it.
Yeah, Shireen was so happy. It was the first thing. She was like, "Oh, I can hear you."
Yes, yes.
Amazing. So the topic today is the relationship superpower you didn't know you needed, reflecting, listening. Have you ever felt like someone wasn't really listening to you, like they were just waiting for their turn to speak? Or maybe you've struggled to understand what someone truly meant, even though you had every word they said. So that's where reflecting listening comes in. Carol Annie chose the topic. And
It actually came from Shireen. She shared
okay.
it last
He
week,
wants
and
me to do the first bit today.
yeah. So
So
yes,
would you
that's
guys
Shireen.
like to be, share the motivation behind it?
Yes, I will. I will. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Yeah. Today I had been listening to a podcast, and it was and I love this. The people that do it, it's called Success by Your Command, and it's actually positively transformational. This podcast, but what they were talking about is really how do we deepen relationships, right? How it was all about love and relationships, and one of the things was recognizing that very often when we talk to people, and I don't know how many of us have done this, and we'll find out a reason why, is that actually we often finish each other's sentences. And I know that I often finish my partner's sentences and he goes, stop, stop. That's not what I'm going to say. But because as human beings, we are very good at anticipating things, we often finish someone else's sentences. And that also can mean that we lose rapport with them, right? But one of the things, it was just really about how do we do proper reflective listening? How do we use it in a form to develop empathy, to develop compassion, to deepen the connection and the relationship? And what really got me was the idea of how we listen subjectively and how we listen objectively. And are these two states, do they contribute to us having a connection or a disconnection? So these are the things that I was really thinking about when I was listening to this topic, and I thought it'd be a great conversation to have.
Absolutely. And when because you suggested it last week, but we'd already chosen the topic,
Mm.
and I was looking for the topic yesterday and sort of thinking, oh, I don't know. And then it wasn't until I came to message you.
You thought, oh, she said
Oh
this.
gosh, yes, I forgot. And it was like, right, bingo, got it. So then, yeah, created the title. But yeah, it's because if you think about it, most people, there is this fastness, there's this busy, busy, busy.
Mm.
Most people just text, and then it's just quick, short communication, and you're not really sort of listening. It's just like you're firing
Yeah.
messages out, getting them back again, and there's not any real deep, deep conversation going on. It's all very much sort of surface. So I thought, yeah, what a great topic. Because I know you were saying about finishing each other's sentences. My college friend Sue and I, we used to do that when we were at college all the time. It was like, but we were so in sync at that time. It was like we could. But now when I meet her, there's a sort of a sense, an element of that. But part of me is going, I don't really feel like I'm being listened to. Like, no, I wasn't quite going there. So something shifted over the years a little bit. But you're saying about, and also people anticipating things, because my sister, she does that a lot. She's got better, but she's so quick thinking.
Mm.
And I've pulled her up on it a few times, and she said, "Yeah, but I already know what you're going, I already know what you're going to say, or what you're talking about." And I'm going, "Really?" But to her, she's already there.
Mm.
And so she can't wait. She has to sort of butt in and straight answer or take the conversation over. And I'm going, ah. But it's frustrating because I just then feel, why bother talking? Yeah. So absolutely great conversation. And certainly in respect with, relationships, um, where does it go and how important is reflective listening? And I love this idea that actually thinking of it as a relationship superpower
Yes.
that you didn't know you
Yes.
needed. Yeah. So that sort of when that option that came up, that suggestion, is like, yes, that's it. Yeah.
But it is a superpower, I think.
Yeah.
When we deal with it in it more,
Mm,
I think we'll really start to recognize that it sits at the heart. It is the
mm,
most important superpower we have.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about listening, but
Mm.
reflective listening does go that bit deeper, doesn't it? And that is
Yeah.
much more connection.
Mm.
Yeah. Namsa, what did you think when you saw the title?
I feel the same. I felt the same way, like Shireen and you, Kiro, and what you guys are saying, that finishing people's sentence, like you're saying, Kiro, and that when you communicate with your friends or your sister, she normally says that she knows what you're gonna say. I get so annoyed that as well when I'm talking to people. They feel like they know exactly what I'm gonna say. I'm like, you don't.
Mm.
So I'm like, you don't. But for me, I've learned that the hard way. Mostly, I think it is the parents that taught me to be aware when someone is communicating, to pay attention, because every time when they talk about their children, they're like, I know my children, I know my child. I'm like, I've got children, but my children always surprise me, always. So I can't really say I know them because I actually don't. They have to show me their personality, who they are every single day. And I also read on the newspapers as well, this woman, she was married to her husband for 40 something years. And I don't know what her husband did. He went to prison. And she said in her own words that never ever think that you know your husband or you've been married with someone and think you know them, because you don't know what they're thinking. Always try to communicate with them and find out exactly who they are. And she was like, I thought I knew mine, but I didn't. So that taught me a lesson. And the parents, they teach me a lesson as well when they keep saying, I know my child, she's not capable of this. I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention when someone is speaking to me, because if I have this mind that I know them, but actually I don't. So it does help.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying there because when you say I know them, you're anticipating, you're putting your map on your child, isn't it? You're
Yeah.
putting your thoughts on this child. And
Mhm.
I think what was really lovely to hear and say that you learned from your parents, you learned the idea that you have to listen and listen differently. And I think that's the thing that is really important, is when often I think I find, and I've done this so many times, I'm already, as I said, anticipating. But if you're already thinking about an answer, if you're already thinking about something that's going to be an aspect of this conversation before you've even waited 2 seconds when they finish, what that means, you haven't listened to what the person is saying. So, like you said, Nomso, there with the child, I don't know my child, but you can say, I know my child. You might know intrinsically some of the predictabilities of
Yeah, yeah.
some of the
But not
traits,
to really
but you
say,
don't know their thinking,
yeah.
right? You really don't know
Mm.
until you actually ask them.
Ask a question, yeah.
Yeah. And then it's about how you ask the question, right? How do you reflect that question back to them in a way that allows it to unfold, and in the way that allows them to feel comforted and want and feel loved and connected to you. So one of the things which can be very useful is to understand that there, in reflective listening, there is subjective listening, and there is a kind of listening which is where we are in an observer position, right? Two types of listening. And so if we're doing subjective listening, it's kind of like when someone will say to us, oh, if you tell a story, and they'll come back, and this is how most communication is, because we want to do so much likeness. So if I say, oh, the weather is really great, really great, and it's wonderful, and and somebody else will say, yes, the weather is great, and they'll go into their story, right? Instead of saying, ah, right, oh yeah, you telling me that the weather is great, or oh, it sounds like you're having a great time with the weather. What are you going to do, right, with the weather? What happens is it opens a doorway for someone else. So what you're not doing is saying, oh, I'm talking about me, I'll wait for my turn. But what I'm doing is wanting to increase the experience that you have of that moment. So if you're saying, oh, it's great, what are you going to do? Is there something specific that you like about the weather when it's great like this? Tell me a little more, right? That automatically forms a connection, a deeper connection, because the person immediately goes, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Let me go into this part. And that's really where I think part of learning about our different kinds of listening is so important, because that's where we truly reflect back, right? We reflect back what they're saying, but we're doing it in a way that is easy for them to hear. Because sometimes we can do reflective listening and it can be really grating, I know what what you're telling me, or these kind of things, or rote things, but you really need to be kind of gently coming back. Sounds like, right? Or, oh, you said that. Whoa, what does that mean? Those kinds of things are the kinds of ways that we can get people to really talk about the stuff that we don't know, because this is where we get to see the intention of the person rather than just the action.
Absolutely. It is that
deepest
intention of the person, and
yeah,
really where's their thinking gone, where are they coming from with their thinking and what they've just said. And another question that you could ask them is, when you're saying about, they say the weather's great, well, what is it about the weather that you find great? Because it's like, maybe it's not that great for you, but it could be, but it's what is it that makes it great for them? So you're actually getting into their thinking, opening up what's so for them, and they've then got an opportunity to actually explain and describe what it is for them. And maybe it is the same, and they go, oh yeah, I feel the same, or I think the same. But it is that opening up. They're open-ended questions, aren't they, rather than the closed ones. And certainly, you were saying it's right. Yeah, oh yeah, I think the weather's great, and I think you immediately, whoa, taking over the conversation.
Like the sympathetic kind of thing where you're going together, but neither of you are feeling heard.
No, that's really right. Because what is it about the weather that you find great? And that opens up, they've perhaps spotted something that you might not have seen. And this is something that, there's a quote that I got from the Dalai Lama. When you talk, you are only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. And I thought that was
like that one.
Beautiful. Yeah. Because you're listening to the other person and doing that reflective listening, so questioning or just using their words back to them. You're opening up and you are learning something more about them. So you're learning something new that you didn't know. And what you were saying, Nomsa, a lot of people, parents say, oh, but I know my child. Really? You know what they're saying? Do you really know what's going on for them, what their deeper thoughts are? Have you really reflected back at them and said, well, I've heard you say that, and I thought this, and actually, what are you saying? Would you like to explain it a bit more? Tell me more. It's that sort of thing. And then this is something that with young children, with their paintings, it was sort of, in a way, I was taught to do and used to teach others to do. It's like, your young child has drawn this, done this picture, this painting, and okay, it might be a bit old, a whole scribble. And you just ask them to say, well, tell me about it. Not what is this? What is it? Tell me about it. And just a different phrasing, and they can tell you a whole story about it.
Yeah.
You know, that you can't see, all you see are all these lines that just go everywhere. But to them, it's a whole different picture. It's got something there to it. So again, it's getting into their world, and you feel that connection happening. And
Yeah.
that's why reflective listening is, really important. And as you're saying, it's not just hearing their words, it's actually fully engaging, understanding, using their words back with them, questioning, and just, yeah, it's a dance with a conversation. And you dance together. It's beautiful, so yeah, certainly, yeah, don't think, oh, that's right. So you said something, was it your mom said something about the husband thinking they know what you said, or
Oh,
you don't know
Shireen.
what they're thinking, or you know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think it
actually,
happens a lot in
yeah,
relationships. When someone think they know you, but they don't.
that's right. I know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. It happens a lot, and they will end up. Sometimes they end up destroying
Hmm.
relationships because people assume. Um, I've learned also. I think with the Coach Foundation as well. When we have meetings every Friday, they always remind us to really ask questions. They like what you were saying, Carol Ann, and they're like when you like get up in the morning, you enter your office, you see people every day. When you say hello, how are you? Do you really mean it, or do you just saying it to just get that person off your thing? And is like just make it so meaningful. So now I give people problems. I stop and I ask questions, making sure that person is okay. And if they have children, I ask questions what their children are getting up to, just to get to know someone and having the conversation. And I realize it improves the relationship with people because the people end up realizing actually you care about them. So it changes everything. But before I used to be hi, now I just go and do my thing. No such thing.
It was a thing to say. You don't really
Yeah,
want an answer. I know
yeah.
you
And she
have to
was
get
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, she was like, when you walk in, do you really mean what you say? And she gave us like assignment to say, make it meaningful. Even at home, when I'm communicating with everyone, I make sure that the conversation is meaningful. But my children sometimes they'll be like, I know what you're gonna say. I'm like, no, you don't. Then I say something, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm like, no, you don't know what I'm gonna say. But with them, I just ask them questions. And I think that is really, really important. But I like what Shireen says. Some people, they're like, when they do that, finishing each other's sentences, they think it actually means they are in love. They're like,
Yeah.
he just know what I'm gonna say. Finishing each other's sentence. And I've learned that when my father-in-law was ill as well, the doctor said to us, don't finish his sentence. It makes him so frustrated because you think you know him very well, but let him say what he wants to say without you guys finishing his sentences because he had mental health problems. So I had to stay focused on that one. He helped me a lot as well. So I let him speak. If I can't hear, I'll ask you again, can you what are you trying to say? So it made me realize actually sometimes we think we know people, but we actually don't. When the doctor said don't finish his sentences, I think he knew that that's what we were going to do. he wants to go to the toilet. We're gonna say he wants a drink because he always loves his cup of coffee, and then we'll give him a cup of coffee, and then he'll get so frustrated because we think we know what he wants, but we don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, and you know, for me, and I know I do it, and I sometimes I kind of have to catch myself. But I think, you know, on a deep level, this is the ultimate respect we can give a human being, right? Is to allow them to voice what it is that what they want to say and what they are thinking and how they're thinking about it, and not shut it down. And I love what you said there, Nomsa. You know, how we think we're saying the same thing, we're talking the same speak, and that we think that, oh yeah, we're on the same wavelength. When you're doing a project, yes, and you're bouncing off ideas, I think that happens, but you're already in that relationship, right? You're already talking, and you're anticipating what each other is going to say, because you're planning something that's very similar in the goal, the same goal. But like Carol Ann, what you said later on, when you met your friend later, you weren't in that same sync space, right? Because now the goals were different. And so that syncing would be less less, I won't say, it would be more, it'd make you feel more like out of kilter, rather, you know, more discordant than when you're in something where you're actually almost mutually doing something. But then I think also the important thing to kind of reflect in, and I think we lean into now, is that about when people have difficult conversations, right? When we have something that goes on, and someone comes back and it's something that's hurting us, how to move out of subjective thinking, right? This is not about us. This is about something else that's going on for this human being. So how do I lean into that? How do I deeply reflect in that, right? How do I sort of take a view outside myself and look at this relationship that's going on between you and them, so that you can then have separate from the feeling enough that you can actually have that reflective questioning or reflective curiosity that will allow you to ask the kinds of questions, or lean into the kinds of reflections that you can come back on. Oh, you know, instead of saying, oh, this hurt me, or any of those kind of things, but come back and say, wow, what happened there? Right? Something happened. I know you don't normally snap. What's going on? Right?
Yeah. And I think that's where we need to be comfortable with ourselves and what could come back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where a lot of people shut down and can't go there and ask that question. Well, what was there for you? You know, because they fear what's going to happen, or they may have their own experience as a child. They may have got full force or something, and it's like they can't go there. So again, it's recognizing when that happens. And if you're not able to do that, then that's where you need to do something about it. Because if you're not able to give that person the permission to say what's so for them, what they're feeling or what's happening, then again, it shuts down the relationship. So yeah, certainly notice if that happens, isn't it? You know, and don't make it wrong. Don't make it wrong. It's about understanding, and really what we're doing here is flagging up and raising people's awareness about reflective listening and what it is. And actually there's a whole another level of being able to be in communication with somebody, having a conversation and a deeper connection, rather than the sort of surface thing that happens, and you're sort of in your own worlds, and you think you're communicating, but you're not really. And there was something that you're saying about people speaking, and actually giving someone time to speak and find their words, because sometimes, and this is something I had with a year 8 class many years ago when I was teaching, and they were quite a difficult class, and I had the Ofsted inspector in, and I was like, oh my God. But anyway, they were absolutely brilliant and they were listening to each other. But the whole lesson was quite a slow pace because I was giving them time to answer, to respond. And I was slammed for it. And it's like, but you know, because all the inspector does is they get a glimpse in that moment of time and they don't know actually what has happened beforehand. And the fact that those children were so good in that moment. Okay, I felt like I was sitting on a volcano, because literally holding them in check, so to speak. But yeah, afterwards, I was just like someone else's perspective on that. It just totally threw me. But it is important. And sometimes children struggle, or even adults struggle to find their words. I do very often. And I've witnessed, a friend of my granddaughter's or someone she went to school with, and they were with some teachers, and he couldn't get his words out, and he wasn't allowed to. So you could see he was getting more and more frustrated and angry because he wasn't allowed to say what was actually happening for him. And this is what happens. So it's allowing someone that time to find their words. And if they can't, you can help them. You can say, okay, so if the words were here and were coming, what might they be? So you're actually, and I love your phrase, Shireen, leaning into it. You're leaning into what they're wanting to say or communicate to you. And that gives them permission to then find their words, but you're giving them that time. So time is so important. Yeah. But yeah, that really was imprinted on me and it's still there. I can feel it, the headmaster having a go at me and I'm going, what? And I really afterwards had to stop and think, well, was my perception of this class completely awry? Um, I was so pleased with them that the way they listened, they even put their hands up, and there was another child who he didn't keep turning around like he used to. It was just little things, but that Ofsted inspector wouldn't have known that.
No.
I wouldn't have known that, so, but anyway, you live and learn, but
that really goes to show how they're listening.
Yeah.
How
They've
they're
got an
observing
agenda.
and what's the
Yeah.
filter that they are looking through.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself was totally disrespectful.
Yeah.
Totally invalidating of another human being by not actually going, well, let's think about what happened before, what happens now, what am I observing here, and ask maybe to have even asked some of the questions to the students themselves.
I know, but we can't even talk to them. They don't talk to us.
I mean, how this is like a barrier, isn't it? A total barrier of coming in. And what happens then is there's no empathy. There's no feeling that gets connected to this, except the feeling of them behind that barrier of what they're observing and now anticipating and now feeling. And then they're writing according to that feeling, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important, like what you're saying, Carol, on about the children really to listen, because even in relationship, if people were to pay attention to each other and really listen without judgment, saying, "Oh, I know what they're gonna say," or "I know why they behave this way," I think people will be happier. They will live a much happier. I saw this family. They were actually, this person was doing something, and the family, not like the family gang up. So I realized that they're ganging up on this family, because you can see when you're on the outside, you can see. But then for myself, I was like, then I had to ask myself question. I was like, only if they could sit down and ask her question why she's doing what she's doing, and then she'll be able to let them know why she's doing that they're doing. But then Lucifer came in and I realized actually he's just poking and putting fire. I realized he was using them, but then I had to evaluate what kind of people that he's using. It's like, these people that like too much, I know everything. Like
Yeah.
they'll be like, I know I'm always right. And then I realized it's those kind of people that he is using to destroy people. And then I was like, I'm out of this situation. Yeah, those people like they like to say I'm right and whatever I say, and the family they're like, when this person is speaking, that means the other person is wrong. And I was like, they are actually wrong. She's got problems, but they are not dealing with it properly. So I think it's really, really important. You learn from people the way they treat people. Like now, when I have problems or when my family have problems, I always seek to understand what is going on instead of me assuming what I know. And even like in a way, like even when my mom is doing something and she'll do something, or maybe she's going somewhere, and then she'll be saying, I need to buy this, and then it should be uh sending me something, and I'll be like, but that's not you. Why this? And then I'll get to understand that she does not want to give me problems for me to maybe to spend money or anything. So it's really, really important if you're in a relationship with someone, seek to understand them every single day. It's really, really important because if you say, I know this person, I'm actually cleansing myself. Even myself, I surprise myself every day. I do things and I'm like, did I actually do that? Honestly, yeah, I do things sometimes like development wise, growth wise, and I'm like, did I just do that or what's going on? And then I realize actually I is me who is doing it, and I'm like, people, if I'm with people that will be saying you will know me. So now I don't say I know somebody. Honestly, I don't say I know people. Even with my children, I speak to them every single day to let them know that never ever get comfortable about who you are and say you know yourself or you know this is what is gonna you don't. So I think that it helps me as well to understand that actually I need to see, I saw Carol Annie here at Ngozi talk shows, went to Des. Carol Annie was completely a different person. So I was like, okay. So I can't really say I know people. I'm learning these things, Sheree. People are teaching me to say, never say you know me because you don't. So I agree with your spouse as well, Shireen, when she said, that's not what I was going to say.
Yeah.
He's got a good sense of self, so he kind of goes, hey.
But I like it the way
Ah,
that he tells you, but
Yeah,
someone wouldn't be able to express it.
yeah,
They'll keep it inside them and they'll keep building and building and building, and they will end up destroying the relationship. But your spouse, because he must be a charming somebody to say, no, honey, that's not what I was gonna say. Pay attention.
yeah. And it just takes me back. And I know while you're talking about that, oh dear, and it takes me back to another story. And I realize I'm going to a subjective bit here. I'm going to tell you a story that's about me, not you. That interesting. I just noticed myself doing this damn thing. But yeah, no, so it's absolutely right. The idea of having someone that's able to stand up for themselves and say, hey, that's not what I'm going to say is really important. And that we give them the space to do it, I think is pivotal. Yeah. Now the story that I was going to do is now gone out of my head. So now thank God it's gone.
Now we listen now to the story.
Oh no, I want to hear the story now.
I want to hear the story.
So if it were to pop
Yeah.
back in again, would you want
No,
it to come out or
it's
not?
fine. It's fine. It's really, I suppose it's
It's
really
okay.
about the idea where it sort of was going into the idea of differences between women and men in a way, where men like to problem solve, and how often we kind of say something because we want to just talk it out so that we can hear, and because for women very often it is we kind of work in a way of talking, and as we talk we start to hear ourselves and we start to do things, whereas men, let's fix it, right? This is
Yeah.
and I'm just thinking of the
Mhm.
time when someone does that to me, is how to, and I was thinking, how do I lean into that? How do I lean into that when I'm reacting to this idea that someone wants to
Mm.
fix something and I don't want them to fix it. I just want them to hear it. And to be able to sort of
Yeah.
step into that and kind of go with the idea their intention is to help me, is to really connect with the intention that not, this person loves you, they want to help you, but the way they're helping you is not the best. They're not hearing what you need. And so it's more about how do you lean into that question and come back? Don't react and run away, but how do you lean into the question of being able to say, I know that you have the best intention of giving me a solution here. I know you really want to help me, but what I really need is this. So by being able to say what you need to say is really important, and also how to offset how to stay in the curiosity and how to offset the feeling that you're feeling of reacting, so that you can still stay curious, that you can still stay in connection, and that you can still build that rapport and that bridge for love, right? Because that's the thing that you really need to do. It's so easy to then get angry and walk away, but the most important thing is to kind of go and think about the idea that their intention, if you're in this relationship, most of the time the intention is to help you on some level. So look for that intention and speak to the intention, and be curious. So I think if you can do that, I think that's going to be a really good place, because a lot of people trigger us, right? A lot of people trigger us. So yeah, that was the kind of story that I was kind of going into. Let's go back to
Okay.
what is it when they trigger us? How do we lean into the intention rather than go into the trigger and then come back and fight or walk away?
Yeah, I love that. I love that because it leans into the intention, and it's actually having that understanding. And when you were saying about the difference between women and men, I got John Gray, isn't it? Women are
Yes.
from Mars and men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and he says this, and it's just that simple. Yeah, women just want to share, just talk about it, but men are wanting to fix. So if you've got that basic understanding, then as you said, yeah, you can let them know, well, I just want to share. Or you could perhaps think, well, yeah, you could do this for me, give them something to actually have a solution. You want a solution and ask them for it. So it is knowing that those basic, ways of being of men and women is very helpful, because as you say, you can lean into that and speak into that as well, and not make them wrong, and also not make yourself wrong for just
Yes.
wanting to talk. It's like, who's been made wrong here? Both of you. So yeah, definitely. Because it also comes down to knowing yourself. What do you want? To be able to then express that, and until, I guess, listening and learning about that, about women just wanting to share, I'm going, well, actually, yeah, that's all I do want to do, and not really wanting someone to do something about it. And so it's having that understanding yourself that that's all that you want to do. Because if you don't understand that, then you can't help the other person to sort of support you in that at all, because they're not going to be listening in that way. So it's actually pre-framing it. So I just want someone to listen. And I remember actually not being, I was perhaps being that male part of me in some way, when someone rang me once, and he was just wanting to be listened to. And I immediately went into the sort of question and went to dive deeper. And he immediately went, I don't want that, no. And I put the phone down. And I was like,
want
oh,
to
I'm
vent?
sorry, I'm so sorry. But yeah, he was not in a very good place. He just wanted to share, and I stepped out of that listening in that moment. But yeah, that was quite a powerful wake up call in that moment. But it's all right. We've spoken about it since, and it's like it's okay. He got where I was coming from. But this is where it's so easy for it just to fall apart in a moment. And it's recognizing, again, it's nothing wrong. Don't make anything wrong. You're not wrong. It's not wrong. It's just what's happened. And then it's how do you deal with that? It's then having a conversation that is open and honest about it, and recognizing, well, actually, something triggered. I was triggered. You were triggered. And let's talk about what was the trigger, and ask for what happened. And again, it's coming back to that being centered in your own self to be able to listen to what comes back. And I've been able to now do that more and more with my sister. Listen to what she's saying, because at one time I felt quite punctured by the way it was very condemning. It was like, you did this and you did that, and no. Whereas now I can just listen to it and go, okay, I hear what you're saying. And actually, I thought about it, and from my point of view, that this is what happened. This is how it was then, and can actually turn things around a little bit. But it does take something to be able to sit or stand with somebody and get that full force of that energy, because it can be quite, for me, it's like a puncture, and it just literally it deflates me, and you just want to shut up, and you feel really hurt. And other people might use other words, but it's being able to just allow that to go straight through you, and to experience actually someone doing that for you. I did that when I was training with Brandon Bays as a journey practitioner. On that Journey Practitioners Week training, I remember I was going through a process with somebody, and one of the trainers was attempting to help me because I was really stuck. She said something that literally triggered me, and I went, woof, straight out. I was like, durr! And she just stayed wide open, and it just went straight through her, and she just stayed present. And it was like, wow, that was just so, it just took away the edge. It allowed me to say what I needed to say and to explode, and then to just come back and for us to then move forward. I've never forgotten that. That was so powerful, because I just felt like someone just held that space for me and just allowed me to do what I needed to do, which just came out, and then we just moved forward. Really powerful. And if you can get to that place where you can do that for somebody, that really helps diffuse the whole thing, and it allows them to get off the chest what is there in that moment. But yeah, that I've never forgotten that. Just her eye, she was just open, just this open space. And there was me really going, her tongue, she'd really triggered me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is nice for when someone feels they're being listened to, because the more the person you get to know each other, the more you realize actually you're listening to each other, listening to each other. I think that's really, really nice. Um, to actually just pay attention when someone is speaking to you, and instead of assuming, and just seek to understand what part they want to play into the conversation, and just let the conversation flow, and asking questions, and just having fun. And I think that is really, really important, even with the relationship, I've seen it with my clients as well. When they come, they have already made a decision that this is how the world is. And so I'm like, if you have already made a decision, this is how the outcome is going to be like,
Mm.
how would you expect a different outcome? So you talk to them and then they're like, oh, I've never seen life like that. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's how things are. Or sometimes I was talking to this guy. He's a very, very smart guy. And he was like, you're a relationship coach. I was like, yeah, I'm a relationship coach. He's a YouTuber as well. So it was like, oh, I don't want no relationship myself. I've made a decision. I don't want the relationship because I feel he is disabled. So he was like, I feel I don't have anything to offer. So I was like, how did you make that out? How did you work that out that you don't have anything to offer? So he was like, if someone wants me to go out with them, activities wise, I wouldn't be able to get them enjoy. So I was like, there are some women who don't mind. So you don't have a right to make a decision and say, I don't have anything to offer. And I was like, next time I have a woman, I'm going to tell them that if I try to listen and enter a relationship, I'm going to say, Nomsa said, I don't have a right. I was like, yeah, you don't have a right to make a decision and say, you have nothing to offer another human being because that's just wrong. So we finished and he was looking at things in a different way because that is actually like making himself for who he is, making himself wrong. So, but that's not right. Um, that's not right. He had about 6 strokes and stuff, but he's fine. He's talking and stuff. But I think it's affected his arm and the legs and everything, and he broke the leg, but he can go to the gym, he can do exercises and things like that and go to the gym, but he's actually labeled himself that, like Carol Ann is saying, never make yourself wrong. So he's making himself wrong, and there are so many people who are doing that even in relationship. They will rather be depressed, blaming themselves. My husband is doing what he's doing because of me, or because I didn't do this, or because my wife is doing this. People make up stories, or like they say, like I don't make up stories with my children and say I know them, or their father and say I know your dad, because at the end of the day, like Carol Ann, you said, you don't know what the person is thinking until they share their thought with you. I have an idea of this is what kind of a person, this is what I know, work with what I know. But if I seek to really understand it, I have to ask questions. Really, really ask a question and listen, pay attention. And do that to Carol Ann. Carol Ann, if she's not being listened to, she tells you straight away. It's funny. Yeah, it is funny. I know with Carol Ann, if I'm gonna have a meeting with Carol Ann, I know how we're gonna talk and ask questions. With Grant ask if I'm gonna have a meeting with Grant, I know I have to be prepared. Honestly, I have to be prepared the whole day. Yeah, because he wants to really, really understand what is going on. So it's just me having an idea of this is the kind of a person. So if I'm gonna say to this person, help me, I've got to prepare myself. So those are the things is what I can say I know, but I can't say I know Carol Ann, I know Shireen, because the truth is I don't know what Shireen will be thinking tomorrow or right now when we finish the talk show. uh,
I love that you said something to that man that you sort of said to him, you don't know. You don't know in a relation. I'd rather not be in a relationship because I have nothing to offer.
It
I
doesn't
think you offer
know.
some beautiful, beautiful things is that you don't know, right?
No,
You don't know, but also how can you make the assumption that somebody else would not want to be in your life, you know? How if you don't deserve it or you think you don't deserve it, I mean, where is the evidence that you don't, right? If
but
you
is that
don't give
very
yourself the
yeah.
opportunity to have the relationship and give someone the opportunity to get to know you in a level and depth that might create a deeper relationship, then actually you've not served them as a human being,
No.
in actual fact, right? So yeah, it's a little bit sad that that person had that thought, and I'm glad that you actually were able to swap it around and be able to get him to see a different point of view, because it's really important when we live these stories, as you say, we live these stories and we don't set ourselves up for that self-reflection.
We
That
deprive
we might,
ourselves of
those
happiness.
self-reflective conversations that we might need, right? Are we in the subjective looking at ourselves, or are we in the reflective looking at ourselves, the observation part, right? And we need to be able to have both, but not be so caught up in the subjective aspect of, hey, this is what's going on for me. I'm hurt. I'm living in my reaction. And hey, let me step outside and really have a look at this relationship for a future potential partner. You know, how am I relating to them? Where's the block? What's happening where I allow just my body to be the hindrance? Lots of paraplegics, a lot of people with some form of disability are happily married, living really very productive lives, very happy lives, and they're contributing to the world. So, it doesn't make sense that there isn't somebody there. Someone always just said they've got a cup and a saucer. For every cup, there is a saucer, right?
Yes, yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah, for every cup, there's a
Yeah,
saucer.
yeah, yeah.
I
Can
know
I just
I know
ask
we
you?
got many mugs now.
Oh, right, yeah,
And I live with mugs and they don't have a saucer.
that's also no.
But in general, every cup.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A cup is different to a mug, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Hold a
yeah.
mug because I'm going out on my own. But if you're holding a cup and a saucer, you say,
So,
hey, I'm working with both of me.
yeah, yeah. Can I just ask you? That the two words you used earlier, and you've used subjectively a few times. That word subjective. So the difference between listening subjectively and objectively, can you just define the two of them? Because I hear the words,
Yeah.
it's that thing with sort of words for me, and maybe some of our listeners are going, well, what actually do you mean by those two words?
Yeah, so subjective is when we use our senses and our feelings with which to with how we're experiencing things. So if someone's talking to us, we are listening through the feeling. So if it's coming in, it hits our heart and we feel hurt. So we feel some kind of experience that goes with it. But if it's an objective experience, it's like we're outside ourselves looking at the communication, right? Look, we're kind of like taking a bird's eye view, looking at something, looking at that communication, and then being able to make a shift. Then we're able to make a choice. So we're moving away from the feeling a little bit, we're distancing a little bit so that we can get a bigger view, a bigger picture of what's really going on. And then we can come back into our body in that subjective state, and we can work from there. But the
Right.
object taking an objective view takes away the feeling enough that we can hold it, and we can come up with that state of curiosity. Because if we're in a subjective state and we're being triggered, then we are going into the straight reaction.
Yeah.
But if we're going to the objective state, is we're moving just a little bit back, more into that observer state, right? Where we're observing and we're looking and we're going, okay, it gives us that space to think a little bit. It gives us space and it gives us space. It gives us time, right? It changes the space time a bit.
And do we then actually are able to actually hear what actually is
Yes.
said?
Yeah. And remember, the communication are words that sit between us, right? So you want those words to be able to filter in the way that they need to filter and land where they need to land correctly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, people have got their own story that then gets triggered, right? And so we want to try to be away from the story for a minute and our own story so that we're able to just let the words permeate where they need to go. So we hear the truth of the word. We hear what's underneath the words.
But we also hear the words themselves.
Yeah.
Because I think, thank you. Because it's what because sometimes if you're really being triggered in your emotions, you don't clearly hear.
No.
So you think you've heard. And the number of times I've had to say, well, no, this is, somebody has said, no, I didn't say that. I said, well, this is what I heard you say.
Yeah.
What did you actually say? Because to me, that's what I heard. And clearly I wasn't listening clearly or really sort of hearing their words properly. So again, it's being able to hear exactly what they did say. I got a quote here that actually says, love is not just about saying the right words. It's about truly hearing the ones that are spoken. And I think it is actually being able to, well, what is it that person is saying? What are the words that they're using? But being able to then go, okay, well, what are they meaning by those words? Because you might have your own meaning. So again, that's where you can be a bit more objective rather than subjective. I'm getting it. Okay.
You got it. You got it. You got it.
I'm getting it. So I'm hoping, listeners, it helps
you.
clear things up for, listeners as well. Because sometimes those words are a little bit more, what was someone talking about?
Well, that quote's a perfect quote, right?
Yeah.
It's a perfect quote. I've listened to actually hear the words that are said, right? The real words. And also, I'm guessing, like when we go into the intention, we're going to always talk to those words. So when we see someone's upset and they're talking about something, we will address those words where they're focused at, right? Okay, right. Because I think that if you don't do that, I think you don't hear them and you can't ask questions into that space that then allows them to receive it.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. So I think we're time.
Oh, we have time.
Time has run away with us.
It is fast. Yes.
So, I just like to leave our listeners with the thought. Actually, there's another quote here. The greatest gift you can give your partner is your full presence. Listening not just to reply, but to understand. And if you can give that gift to your partner, then that's what will help deepen the whole relationship. I did have a question I wanted to ask. It's about, do you have to be the only one who does the reflective listening? And if you find yourself in that position, how can you go about encouraging your partner to do reflective listening? So again, that's another.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think people learn very quickly. We mirror each other very quickly. Isn't that the case? So, I mean, it is interesting because when I know when I've said to my partner, I really don't need you to fix what I'm doing. But when I started saying, I know you really want to help me here. When I started doing that, instead of saying, hey, I don't want you to fix me, I'd say, I know you really want to help me. And I know it comes from a place of love. What I need is this. Can you do this? Can you offer that? And then what would happen is he would come back and say, well, okay, so how can I ask you the question that you need to hear? Right? So it then became a two-way street. And I think that's how we get, once you give that absolute respect to someone, and you're willing to stay in that space, then they very soon enough, if you're able to give honest feedback back, what happens is they become the receptor, right? They become the ones that do this reflective practice for you, and they listen. Because I always believe everybody has the highest intention, even if if it doesn't seem like it in that moment. If they love you, they really, this is just your triggers getting in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Okay. So did you want to say anything else to leave our listeners with, or do you think that wrapped it up nicely?
No, I'm just really sitting in the reflection of thinking about, if you don't mind, Carol Ann, putting those quotes up and putting them in the chat, certainly in Facebook, because I think they're just wonderful. Certainly the Dalai Lama one, I really enjoyed, and then the second one, which was actually listen to the words, actually hear the words.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think they're very powerful, those two quotes.
Yes, for me, I just leave you with it's really, really important to seek to understand the other person, and the person you are dating, they're your best friend. Best friend, they don't judge each other. You listen to them, and you ask questions if there's something you don't understand. No asking, not like a holding grudge or say I know this person. Just really seek to understand that person and to listen to them and get to know them. It makes life very, very easier. Really, really easy. I've seen it with my children, and when my daughter does what she does, I listen to her. But when her dad tells her off and she will come back and say, Mommy, you accept people for who they are. I'm like, what do you mean? How did you work that out? And she's like, you ask questions. And when you ask questions, you let me be. And I think that is really, really important. But I've learned that the hard way. Along the way, there's been people that are teaching me. Carol Ann is one of them. Sometimes I used to pray and then God will answer my prayers, and I'll go to Carol Ann and say, Carol Ann, I have problems. And Carol Ann will be like, what kind of a prayer have you been praying now? And I will say the prayer, and she'll be like, don't you think God is showing you what you ask him? You ask him, and now you're seeing it as a problem. So I've learned to listen, Carol Ann. Really, really listen. When I pray or when I do something, I learn to listen. When I see people that judgmentally judging people, I observe. Even at work, I see people in the office, they are judging each other, and then I'll be like, have you ever thought this is what the problem? And if people are assuming me, I go and ask a question. Everyone is saying this. Can you defend me? Can you tell me what is going on? And that person you may find actually that person is actually have a big problem while people are busy assuming the making up stories. So it's really important in a relationship just to treat that person as your best friend. That's the simple way. Best friend to cry together. They seek to understand each other. And that's about it. And also, Carol Ann, have you said your words of encouragement? And if you're watching us from YouTube, please do subscribe to our channel, LinkedIn. Please join us to our other channel as well. Follow us on Facebook and other Twitter, Instagram, and share the videos as well. And if you're looking for coaching, you can go to the website. If you're looking for love, there's a part where you can sign up. If you're looking to find your own voice lit from within, you can sign up as well. There's a calendar there. You can book a session. And we have two groups on Facebook as well, Ghosty Talk Shows group and the Unique Billionaire Mindset. No one is joining Ghosty Talk Shows. Everybody's joining a Unique Billionaire Mindset. So join both groups, guys, and be part of the family. God bless and live with grace. We will see you tomorrow.